The morning sun cut through the fog that always seemed to hang over Fort Hensley, a top-security government installation buried deep in the Nevada desert. Every person on that base was someone important: pilots, scientists, intelligence analysts, but none more suspicious than the young woman who arrived that day. She looked far too ordinary to belong there. No insignia on her uniform, no visible rank, and when she handed her ID to the guard at the gate, it didn't scan. The red light blinked, denied. The soldier frowned, tapped the screen, and tried again. Same result. He looked up, confused. "This has to be fake," he muttered. And that single word, fake, was enough to draw attention. Within seconds, a small crowd began to form, soldiers whispering, technicians slowing their pace, the murmurs spreading like wildfire. The young woman, barely 30, calm and quiet, didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed on the horizon as if she'd been through this before. The gate guard called for backup, and moments later the head of security, Chief Reynolds, approached. He was a veteran of 30 years, a man whose stare could freeze anyone in their tracks. He took the ID, examined it closely, and then looked back at her. There was something unsettling in how composed she remained. No fear, no argument, just patience. He turned to the soldiers around him, about to order her detainment. But then something caught his eye. A faint insignia etched into the card's lower edge, barely visible unless you tilted it in the light. His expression shifted instantly. His jaw tightened and the color drained from his face. He stepped back as if he'd just realized who he was standing in front of. And when he finally spoke, his voice carried through the whole gate. "That's not a fake," he said quietly, then louder. "Level 9 clearance. No one talks without her." The silence that followed was deafening. Soldiers who had been seconds away from handcuffing her suddenly stood at attention. No one at Fort Hensley had ever met anyone with Level 9 clearance. Most didn't even believe it existed. It was a classification whispered about in intelligence circles, reserved for operations so secret that even the president only knew fragments. She gave a small nod, took her ID back, and walked past the checkpoint without a word. The gate opened automatically. Her boots echoed against the concrete as the desert wind kicked up dust around her. It was clear she wasn't there by accident. Inside the base, rumors spread faster than protocol. Who was she? What was Level 9? Even Reynolds, who had faced everything from espionage threats to nuclear scares, found himself unsettled. He tried to request her file, but the system denied him access. Restricted, it read. Eyes-only authorization. That alone told him enough. She outranked everyone in that building. Still, he couldn't stop thinking about the look in her eyes. They weren't the eyes of authority. They were the eyes of someone who had seen too much. Someone carrying the weight of something unimaginable. Her name, according to what little information the database revealed, was Dr. Ilara Kane. Not a soldier, not a general, but a theoretical physicist. Years ago, her work had been dismissed as impossible. She had warned that the project they were testing, something called Project Horizon, was dangerously unstable. The government ignored her, buried her warnings, and reassigned her to an off-record unit. But a month ago, everything changed. A classified experiment had gone wrong, catastrophically wrong. And now she was back. Days turned into nights filled with tension. The base became a maze of secrecy. Ilara moved between hangars, sealed labs, and command rooms with quiet determination. The soldiers noticed how even the highest-ranking officials deferred to her. Reynolds watched from a distance, struggling to reconcile the woman who had walked into his base under suspicion with the one who now commanded absolute respect from every corridor she entered. Then one night he saw it for himself. The alarms blared through the desert, red lights flashing across the hangars. Something in the Horizon reactor had destabilized again. Technicians panicked, shouting data and numbers no one could make sense of. But Ilara didn't hesitate. She ran into the containment chamber without a suit, without hesitation. For 10 long minutes, the control room could only watch as energy arcs danced around her silhouette through the glass. When the alarms finally stopped, the reactor stabilized. She stumbled out, shaking but alive, the room staring at her in stunned silence. Reynolds caught her as she nearly collapsed. She looked up at him, eyes full of exhaustion, and whispered, "I told them it would happen again. This time we stopped it in time." The next morning, a classified directive came from Washington. Fort Hensley's operations were to be fully transferred under her command. Even Reynolds, the base's most trusted officer, was reassigned under her supervision. And when he saw her ID again, he finally understood. The symbol at the corner wasn't just clearance. It represented something far greater, a unit that operated without recognition, one that had prevented global disasters without the world ever knowing. She wasn't there to prove authority. She was there to prevent history from repeating itself. Weeks later, after the operation concluded and Project Horizon was permanently shut down, Alara quietly packed her things. No ceremony, no applause. She left the same way she arrived, silently. As her vehicle disappeared beyond the gate, Reynolds stood watching, realizing something profound. In a world obsessed with rank and recognition, true power lay in those who worked unseen, who carried the burden without needing validation. That night, he placed a small note on the security desk. It read, "If she ever returns, no questions, no checks, no hesitation. Just let her through." Because heroes, he realized, don't always wear medals. Sometimes they carry ID cards no one understands, until the day the world needs saving again. If this story touched your heart or reminded you that true authority is earned through sacrifice and integrity, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Legends of History. Special request, comment below and tell us, what does real power mean to you?